slight technical difficulties here. Just give us 1 second. Hello, hello, hello. Let's figure out how to start this music here. What's going on today on today's show? So, thank you for tuning in. We're going to be talking about what's happening in the month of April here. Got my lovely Britney Spears mic here. See how the volumes are. I don't know if anyone can hear me. Is there anyone watching at home yet? Sounds like there's just okay. We got one person on the line so far. All right. Well, let's get started here. Originally, I wanted to have some maple syrup with me because April is a good month to have pancakes. We're just ending all the maple syrup harvesting and boiling in the last few weeks. We've actually had a really good season, be able to extend it almost into April, which is kind of unusual. See? I do have maple syrup right here. I'll have to enjoy some of that later. But did you know that it takes 40 years is how long it takes to actually start being able to tap a maple tree? And while you can make syrup out of other trees, you can only make maple syrup out of maple trees because maple syrup has to come from maple trees. Get it? So you want the tree to be about 12 inches, but your diameter when you're at the height of your head. So 40 years, that's a long time. You realize if I was to plant a maple tree forest right now, I wouldn't see it until I was about 70 years old, be able to start making syrup. It's a long time. Makes you really appreciate the maples that we do have and the sugar and the maple syrup we have. All right, let's move right along here. Let's get into what's happening this month as we bear with us as we're engaging in some new technology to make a better show. Check out our new logo. Now, this is based on a true story where I actually did get chased by a bear while canoeing. They can swim quite well, actually. So, signs of spring. Well, we were talking about skunk cabbage last month, and we've got to see some this month. That was pretty exciting. As you can see here, it really likes wet areas. So I've been finding it in wet areas, which has been pretty amusing as well, because I've also seen it growing in actual streams, creeks, rivers. So that's been pretty crazy. But if you want to find some in Brantford, there's some around the Henry Road area where the bridge area is in the trail. It's a good spot in there. Just look towards the river where you find some nice wet area. And also if you're in the Simcoe area, it's everywhere growing along the Lynn Valley Trail. There is just so much of it. Now I did get down. I went to when it was about -10 or something the one day. I went and found a bunch of skunk cabbage. And I knelt down and I went to touch it to see if it was warm. I gotta say, it didn't really feel that warm. So maybe in the beginning it starts to heat, and I haven't really noticed the smell. So, and I've been trying. So, anyways, get out there and enjoy some skunk cabbage. What's also happening this month is you got the birds are starting to lay their eggs still. I know you got the bald eagle nest around Brant Park where they should be laying their eggs. Everything right now. I've seen had to scare the house finch off around my east troughs a few times as they've been trying to make a nest, and they are quite messy. So we have lots of that stuff happening right now. We're going to get back to nesting because I got a story to share actually in a little bit here. But it's another sign of spring. Everyone says robins are a sign of spring, and I've always been a little cautious about that. I don't feel that robins are really a sign of spring because you see them all year round. They do overwinter. But the catch here is when you start to see them in groups, such as this, when you start to see like 10 to 20 robins all together in large gatherings, that is your sign of spring. When you just see one or two, that doesn't indicate spring. So now they are back gathering in large groups, getting ready for mating and for raising their young. Now, the bird of the month here is the American woodcock. Now, bear with me, gotta load up some technology here. So right now, the sun is approaching dusk. Yeah, dusk, right? Yeah, approaching dusk, and you want to go to an early succession area, an area where the grass hasn't been cut for a few years, and it's slowly starting to turn back into nature. And you just go out there around this time, and as it gets darker, you'll hear the American woodcock making this noise. Now you should be able to hear this. It's making a nice peent noise. So you hear that. And then, now keep looking in the direction where you're hearing it, as this is where it gets exciting. All of a sudden, the American woodcock will take off like a rocket straight up in the air, making a rolling noise with its wings as it goes up, and then dive bomb down, making the rolling noise, and land right back in the same spot, where it will then start making that peent noise again, and going back and forth. This is the male woodcock's mating dance. So it's kind of cool right now. And it's also interesting because they sound like a nighthawk, but nighthawks don't come here till June. So it's confused a few birders. So go check out your American woodcock. Now, here are your screech owls are starting to nest right now. And this is where an interesting story coming out of Windsor. This couple had installed a screech owl box, and they installed a camera in it, and they've been monitoring the screech owls as they started to nest right about now. So they had the camera in there, and they saw that the screech owls laid an egg, but then they didn't come back. They vacated the nest, and a day went by, 2 days went by, and they didn't see the screech owls, and they just were staring at the egg on the camera, and I thought that was odd. Then the eastern black squirrel comes wandering in, eats the egg, vacates, leaves. Then they noticed that the eastern screech owls came back, and the nice thing is they did lay another egg, but they were clearly a little bit traumatized that they had already lost one young. And sure enough, the black squirrel comes waddling back with nesting materials now. It thinks this place is vacant. It's ready to go build its nest inside the owl box. As soon as it pops its head in, there's two screech owls staring at it that quickly threw it out of the house. So I thought that was a cool story. Don't mess with owls right now. All right, what do we got next here? We have the invasive species of the month. So this segues in from our birds because your birds are busy right now trying to get all the earthworms. But did you know all earthworms in Ontario are invasive? They were brought here. They didn't exist here beforehand. So, we're talking about the Asian jumping worms today. This is a new species that's coming into Ontario that's starting to be more of a threat. And this has a voracious appetite. So what they'll do is that all the organic matter, all the leaves and the debris you see on the ground in the forest, they will eat it ridiculously fast. But they won't do it when the plants actually need the fertilizer. They'll do it when it's the most inconvenient time for the plants to have this fertilizer being produced towards the end of the year. So it would be more of a fall runoff, which would do more to pollute our rivers and such. And also, a lot of critters do depend on this leaf material. So by having it break down so quickly, it kills off a lot of our insects, which does birds. It just spirals out of control. And it might also get rid of some of the plants, too, that were hiding under this coverage. So it's all a tight web of things that need this stuff to survive. So we look for this with that white band, as you see on the picture there. And also, this thing wriggles around uncontrollably. I would have shown you video, but I thought it was a little too disturbing for my audience. If you don't like snakes, don't Google these things. They're going to be scary if you start seeing them everywhere. They're not like your regular earthworm that's a little docile. These things are just freakishly going all over the place. But the ministry and government is looking for sightings of them, so if you do find them, maybe we can put a stop to them from getting a good hold in Ontario. But it's interesting that I say that all the earthworms are invasive. When I was talking to the Temagami elder, Alex Matthias, he mentioned that his elders didn't used to wear shoes when walking the forest. And he's like saying that the leaf material has disappeared. He didn't know why. He didn't understand the forces at play. But it's possibly because the earthworms have depleted all the earth material, that his elders used to be able to walk barefoot with all the leaf material and not hit twigs and rocks, but now all the twigs and rocks are exposed. Interesting. So it's also spring cleanup. I know a lot of people are getting excited for getting their gardening and everything in. This is just a word of caution here, a little PSA. We want to wait to remove leaves if we can until the temperatures are above 10 degrees Celsius or 50 Fahrenheit, and that's consistently, like over 10 days. The reason being is a lot of the critters, insects, and stuff are depending on that leaf material to keep warm and to exist right now. So if you rake it up and throw it out, you might kill them. And you say, well, it's mostly insects right now. You're like, well, I don't like insects. But birds like insects, and most people like birds. And the problem is, if you get rid of all the insects and kill them all off, the birds have nothing to eat, then they die. It's just a chain reaction. So wait for the temperature to warm up. Also, if you can keep your hollowed stems around right now for the bees that might be lying in them. While native bees or solitary bees like to hide in things like stems. So what excites me most about April is the frogs return. And I want to show you a little clip here. Let's see how we can pull this off. Okay. Oh, maybe we can't pull it off easily. Well, I wanted to show you a clip of when I was in Clear Creek last year, and I was observing the frogs and all the That's about all of that clip. So there were spring peepers and chorus frogs all mixed into there. So right now I want to focus on the spring peeper, and you can see from its back right now, this is one of the first ones to merge, and it's one of my favorites, and because it's also ridiculously tiny, like the size of a toonie. But you see there's kind of like the lines on its back kind of make an X. That's how you identify it. So let's go into a video here if we can get it loaded. Here's your spring peepers. Pretty cool. Love that noise. And so now we also have the Western chorus frog. That's another cool one. So let me play you what the Western chorus frog sounds like as well. Check that out. Okay, so you get the idea there. Of how the Western frog sounds. So what about, there's another one here. Oops. The wood frog. Now this is a little more of what you might be used to. Let's load up the wood frog. That's pretty much your frog scenario for April. There'll be more frogs coming out towards the end of the month and the beginning of May, but we'll cover that next month. And one thing I find really interesting, if you can find an area where there are these frogs, my favorite places are Rondo, the east side of the campground, and also Clear Creek Forest, the side that's farther away from towards the lake is the better side, but there's not necessarily a nice trail through there. Anyways, what is fascinating about these frogs and the noises is during this COVID time, I like last year I went out in March to the cottage, and because the park was pretty much deserted because it was closed, the frogs were the loudest I've ever heard them. Usually there's people camping there in April and so, but it was closed. So you didn't have any of those noises and everything. And they've proven now that the slightest noise throws off the frogs. The beauty of the frogs and what you really want to hear and experience is when they sound like a great big organism. When they all come together and their sound just amplifies each other. So it sounds like a great big massive frog. And you'll be there and you won't be able to tell where the frogs are. You can't locate a single frog. Now this makes it harder for predators to find the frogs. But now, after a car drives by or rumbles or there's a noise that freaks out the frogs, they get quieter. It becomes easier to actually locate them because they're no longer in sync anymore. It takes a while for them to build up that syncness to create the volume. Anyways, it's interesting how much noise affects the frogs and the pools that they're in. I've found it quite fascinating, and I've been lucky enough to enjoy the times where there have been very little sound and very little interference. I might not get that ever again. So, let's move along to plants. The spring ephemerals. I've been loving talking about these, and it seems everyone I talk about lately doesn't have a clue what I'm talking about. So here we have the bloodroot. Once again, I might have been a little premature there in mentioning that comes out in March. It's more of an April plant. It's looking like around this time of year. And you'll see during the day it will open, and at night it will close. That's kind of cool. Now the trout lily. This is one of my favorites to see. That's a sure sign of spring, just covering the floor. And the reason why it got the name trout lily is you see the little purple kind of splackle there on the leaves kind of makes it resemble a trout. Or so they say. I don't catch enough trout to know. But that's particularly one of my favorites, the most photogenic. You also have the Dutchman's breeches. Now this one I liked because the flower is designed so that it prevents, it's angled, the insides are angled away so that wind and rain don't affect it, don't mess up with the pollen. So it takes a special type of bee with a very long tongue to be able to access the pollen. But this feature allows it to come out early in the year when there is high wind and rain. Now, one thing I didn't mention about your spring ephemerals is what is an ephemeral? An ephemeral plant is one marked by a short life cycle. The word ephemeral means quickly fading. So these plants come out very early in the year to take advantage of the light that is still hitting the forest floor before the tree canopy explodes. So that's probably the last one comes out around May, end of May, and then the forest floor just resumes its low light levels after that. That's why when we're talking about trilliums, even though it is Ontario's native plant, you don't want to pick one up or pick it and bring it home, because then you kill that plant. And I believe trilliums take, what is it? I think 8 years underground before they're able to produce a flower. They're a long-living plant, and it takes them a long time because they're trying to build that energy from just a short amount of time of light. So please do not pick trilliums. Take photos, admire them, paint them. Another cool thing this year, or this in April, is also the salamanders are becoming more active. So in this photo, I believe the black one might be a Jefferson salamander, which are quite rare to this area. And the other one is your common red salamander. Now, I found this just by moving a log in April, and they were under there trying to keep moist and cool. So if you do see a log or anything, maybe give it a little nudge, see if you see anything underneath it, but make sure to put it back carefully, because these creatures can't dry out, and they also, by moving the log, now they're more prone to predators. Okay, salamanders are pretty cool. You don't see them often, and they also should be maybe just ending up their mating dance around the vernal pools right now. But that seems to be happening at night, and I don't know anyone who's actually witnessed the salamanders dancing, but I hear they got the moves like Jagger there. So the night sky. What do we got going on this month? We wanted to show you a clip here of what we might be. So here are the northern lights. Did anyone get to see the northern lights this week? You might still get a chance. This is a photo in southern Ontario taken by Jason O'Young on Twitter. Oh. And also this month, we have the Lyrid meteor shower. It's taking place from April 15th to the end of the month, and promises to peak around April 21st to the 22nd with an average of about 15 meters an hour, but possibly up to 100. And this is going to be in the northeast side in the late evening towards Vega and Lyra. So keep an eye out for that if you'd like seeing some meteors. Events happening this month. We got lots of spring cleanups. There's lots of tree plantings. I suggest checking out your local conservation areas, your local nature groups and areas to see if they're having any events, and go be a part of them. Most of them take place on weekends. We also have Earth Day. That is coming up April 22nd. Always one of my most exciting days. It's usually the kickoff to spring. We just got to get a sip here. And what happens after Earth Day? Well, here's some of our news. Next month is going to be May, And the Nature Time show is looking for a co-host or someone to at least come on to talk about birds. Month is a major birding month and probably the most exciting birding month on the calendar. And I'm not a huge birder, so if someone would like to come and talk about some birds with me, please pull up a chair. We'll figure that out where the chair goes after. But yes, come join me. I also had a story here. I had pictures. I don't know where I put them. The Peregrine Falcons. There's a pair of Peregrine Falcons in Hamilton that have been staying on at the Sheraton Hotel, and we were happy to announce they have laid eggs. So here in this photo here, you can see just the tail of the eggs. They're obviously protecting these eggs. And here is the Peregrine Falcons out on the ledge of the Sheraton Hotel. We want to thank everyone for watching. And we'll see you back in May. If you like the show, please give it a like, share it, tell your friends, comment, let me know you're watching, let me know you watched the replay. Even let me know if you saw anything that you were that I was talked about this month. Anything that captivated your interest. Has the show changed your habits, your way you approach going out into nature? We'd like to hear from you. And what else you might be looking for to hear from me. Maybe I'm not covering topics that you'd most likely like to hear. I don't even think I covered trees today. Oh gosh, is there still time? No, we're end it. All right, so do we have a